Hello and welcome to episode 144 of the Mouses Makes Not Very Much Knitting Today podcast. Before I get into all the knitting that I haven't done, a reminder that the Breezeway Make-Along is running on Ravelry, as is the Yarn Show Make-Along. They both run until the 31st of August. Entries by the Ravelry thread, but if you can't use Ravelry, you can email me your entry at mousesmakes@gmail.com. I'm trying to do this more slowly because my friend Sue told me off. It is all linked down below, but yeah, she had to keep rewinding me because she didn't catch what I said, so I'm trying to go a bit more slowly. Okay, Christmas in July Make-Along. That is running until the end of July, so July 31st. Entry there again is on Ravelry. There is an entry thread. There's also a chatter thread. You can only enter one thing, so one entry per person on the entry thread. It doesn't have to be a finished object. So if you want to just enter it now and then share how far you've got on the chatter thread at the end of July, that's absolutely fine. If you can't use Ravelry, again, you can email me at mousesmakes@gmail.com, and it is mouses with an S in the middle. People forget the S and then it doesn't reach me. You can use a hashtag on Instagram, but there is no entry on Instagram. It really is just to share. If you're going to use the hashtag, it is mouses.xmas.in.july. And if you're going to do that, you need to, if you want me to see it anyway, you need to also tag me, and that is amandajane.davies.58. Okay, I think that's everything I needed to tell you about that. I'm wearing something today that I can claim absolutely no credit for. You may recognise this, in fact, if you watch Denise from Dear Designs, because this was in fact her rocket tee. Denise, if you watch her, you'll know she has been on an absolutely amazing weight loss journey. She and her partner both, and this no longer fits her. So literally her loss is my gain, because I now have the rocket tee that I have quite shamelessly admired for some time. I can't tell you what any of the yarns are because I didn't knit it. It fits me beautifully. I'm thinking of sending everything that I want to wear to Denise to knit, because this is probably better fit than any of the things that I make myself. Thank you, Denise. There is another finished object that I want to show you, and again, it's not mine. I'm going to put a picture in here. In fact, there'll be a couple of pictures. A few weeks ago, I told you my eldest son, Peter, was crocheting a blanket. He came down and we sat together and we had like an hour and a half of crafty time. It was brilliant. Anyway, I promised I would show you the finished object, and so these are the finished objects. It's quite a large blanket. It's one of the photos shows it on a 2-seater sofa, and then I've done a close-up so that you can see the stitch. I don't know what it's called. I think it might be tulip stitch, but I'm not very good with stuff like that. I'm just going to pause for a drink. 2 seconds. Sorry, as always happens, first thing in the morning I start talking and my throat dries out because it's not used to me talking so much. And now I'm going to cough. I do apologise. Okay, shall we now move on to something that I might actually have made myself? I've got to be honest with you, I have not done a lot of knitting this week at all. There's been, out of the last 7 days, there have been 4 days where I don't think I've touched a knitting needle for more than half an hour. I've just been involved in other things, some of which I'll tell you about later. But this month I'm only working on Christmas in July projects. So this is an advent from 2023. It's the Mousewitch Yarn advent. It was called the Colour Play advent, so I'm calling this the Colour Play blanket. This is the 3rd thing I've knit with it because I keep changing my mind. And this is inspired by Abby of Blue Heart Crochet, who crocheted a blanket. I think she's not long finished it. I'm sure I saw an episode just recently where she'd finished it. But she did hers in corner to corner squares. I'm doing knitted mitered squares, and hers is larger because she used the Mousewitch Yarn's Colour Play advent and the My Yarny Corner advent. I think it was Wildlife 2023, and she did plain square, one of the advent squares, plain square, the other advent square for each day. It's beautiful, and I wished very much that I'd done that with mine, but I'm not going to pull out what I was making with my Yarny Corner advent because I quite like that. So I've taken the inspiration and I'm knitting I'm so sorry, a mitered square blanket. If I'm going to get the main body of it finished by the end of July, I need to really knit 12 squares a week. And I'm on the 12th square this week. They're not going in order. They're days 1 and 2. I think this is 9. No, this is day 6, 5 and 4. Don't ask me why I'm doing it all out of order. I can't really give you a definitive answer other than I just felt like it. I wrote up this little schematic and I'm crossing them off as I go. But it means that I can do them out of order because I know which day goes in which square. So that's been helpful. I'd hoped to use the whole 20 grams in a square and I'm not. I'm using 11 maybe. So what I'm planning to do is with the leftovers do a border, and at the moment I'm not sure what sort of border. I'm torn between an I-cord or doing a shell stitch, crocheted shell stitch border, starting with day 1 up at the top where it shouldn't be, and then working my way round so that by the time I come down it won't work. It probably won't work because I'll end up with not the right quantity and I'll have to pull it all out, or I'll have too much, and so it just won't match up the way it does in my head. But at the moment that's what I'm kind of planning. Shell stitch would be quicker, but I don't know. I don't know at the moment. So that really is all I've knit. I can't remember how much was on here last time. I showed it to you last time. I think it might just have been these 5. I don't remember. Doesn't really matter. So I've got on with that this week because that's what I've been knitting late at night when I'm tired, first thing in the morning when my brain's not awake. The only other thing I've been knitting is the Silver Forest tee. I say tee, it's obviously a sweater, but I'm going to knit it as a tee with short sleeves, by Jennifer Steinglass. Now, if you watched last week, I'd done a Mandy. I don't know how I do this. I don't know why it happens, but it was coming out 18 inches larger than I wanted it to be. So, backtrack a bit. What I normally do when I'm going to knit a pattern that I've not knit before, I'll look at my gauge for that size needle with that yarn, because I've generally knit something that size with the same yarn before, and then I'll work out how many stitches I've got per inch, how many inches round I want it to be, and then I'll multiply the one by the other. When I've got a total number of stitches, I'll look, if you're talking about the full bust measurement, for example, I'll go and I'll have a look in the pattern, at that point in the pattern, for the size that has a stitch count closest to my calculation, and I'll make that size. I don't know why I didn't do that with this. I should have done. It would have saved a lot of problems. So that's what I've done now. I've pulled out what I had. I hadn't started the colour work. I think I'd just started. Yes, I'd done half a row of the first row of colour work. Pulled it all out. Started again. Pretty sure it's going to fit okay this time. Hope so, because I am now on to the colour work. So, I have, this is going to be tricky to show you because it wants to roll up. I have this much. This is an interesting construction, and I've not made something this way before. So, you do a provisional cast on. I've knitted one of my hairs into it. That's not a rare occurrence. It happens all the time. I don't know why I'm not bald. I must lose so much hair, and I knit it into everything. Provisional cast on, and then you do a few rows, and then you start using your main colour, and you do a few rows of that, and then go into your colour work. So this is kind of the border to the colour work, which I'm doing in a minty green, and that's my own hand dyed. It doesn't have a name, I just dyed it. Then the black, it's off-white. It's not as stark as white, but not as yellowy as cream. And the sort of tealy colour, they're all Yarn Smith's Merino Sock in the imaginatively named off-white, black, and this is Fjord Blue. I'm really, really pleased with how it's coming out. I did go up a needle size. The pattern tells you to. I don't normally, but I did because of the jiggery pokery that I'm doing with upper bust and full bust. I'm not going to go into it all. I will just confuse myself and you. Although you might understand, but I will almost certainly confuse myself. So I have gone up a needle size for the colour work as suggested, and it's quite stretchy. It'll be okay. My floats, everybody wants to see the floats. There's my floats. Depending what I'm knitting colour work wise, when I learnt to do colour work many years ago before the internet, I must have learnt it from a book, because no one that I knew knitted. So I must have read it in a book, but it said not to let your floats be longer than 3 stitches. Depending what I'm knitting, I tend not to go longer than 5. So if there's 5 stitches, I might catch it on stitch number 3. If there's 6, I'll catch it on stitch number 3 or number 4. Down here, these floats are actually quite long and I've not caught them. It depends what I'm knitting and really how I'm feeling about it. I'd hoped to have the colour work finished for you to see today, but as I say, I just haven't had many knitting days this week. Hopefully, really I should put it away now and start on my next thing, but I'm just going to start on the next thing and knit both of them, which means I won't get anything done on anything, but you know how I am. Hopefully next week I'll have the colour work finished at least, and my plan is to then steam block that before I knit the rest, because you finish going up, then you pick up your stitches and you go down. So I'm going to do that. Today I'm going to cast on, I showed you this last week, but I'll show it to you again. Today is the Nancy birthday cast on day. Now I'm not recording this on Wednesday when this goes out, so I'm not giving away when Nancy's birthday is, data protection and all of that stuff. But our lovely friend Nancy, who is just amazing, she's Kitty Scrapper. She has the Kitty Scrapper podcast, and short spoiler for later, I had the most stressful day last Wednesday and I had a blinding headache by the end of it, and I wasn't going to Zoom with my friends in the evening. I was just going to go to bed, and Dave said, why don't you just go and do half an hour? Well, 10 minutes with Nancy, stress headache gone. Literally 10 minutes into it, headache was gone. I was laughing my head off and I felt absolutely fabulous. She's like medicine, is Nancy. So she's requested, because in our friends group we're mostly all Stephen West fans, she has requested everyone cast on a Stephen West project for her birthday. And this is kind of in lieu of giving her a party or presents or anything like that, because we are scattered all over the world, not just all over the country. And if we could manage to make it black and neon, that would be the best gift ever. So I'm casting on the Bubble Sweater by Stephen West. I'll show you this picture. And I'm going to be knitting it in black as requested and neon. And I'm going to cast that on as soon as I've finished recording this. I cannot wait. I'm in two minds which way to go with my neon, but I will decide. I thought I might put... Hang on, let me show you this picture, because you really need to see this bit. To see, please excuse Stephen West's silly expression. Can you see up here? The top one I was going to make shocking pink, because that's my best colour out of the ones that I've got to put in. But the top one doesn't come all the way round to the front, and neither does the second one. So I think this one needs to be the shocking pink. So I may have to go out of order with my colours. I don't know how I feel about that. But I'm thinking maybe if I put the ones I like the least round the back and then have the shocking pink. I'll need 4 then for the front. Assuming it's the same for each size. So I could go shocking pink, slightly less shocking pink, that pink, I don't know what to do. Right, let me show you all the colours again. Okay, this yellow one is my least favourite, so I was thinking that for the top one. But really, that's the one that goes there. I don't suppose it matters, does it? I don't know. I'll worry about that later. I can't just sit here looking at them while you just, you know, watch me trying to think. Those are the colours that I'm using for the bubble stitches, and for the main everything else I'm using Yarn Smith's Create DK in black. I've used this quite a lot and I really like it. It's very soft. I do have a bit of an issue with a couple of the other colours smelling weird, but this one doesn't. It just smells like yarn shops. It's 100% acrylic, I should have said that. The hand dyed, which is my own hand dyed that I'm using for the neons, is 75/25 superwash merino and nylon. I don't mind mixing them. Nancy does it all the time, so it's even more Nancy-ish for Nancy's birthday cast on, isn't it? So I'm going to be doing that later. I have finished. This isn't really an FO because this is just half of the 6th month of my crocheted square blanket. I did show you these last week, but they weren't crocheted up, so I'm going to show you again. I've done, these are June, can't really see the red one. They're from Yarn Unique and they're all done now. So I've literally got 60 squares ready for my blanket. I'm halfway through it, only another 60 to go, but I'm doing them 10 a month. It'll be fine. I did spend a whole day doing that. Can't remember what day it was, but whatever day it was, I wasn't getting my July, Christmas in July knitting done. There's also been a change to the thing that I plan to every week. Plan to cast on next week, which is a cowl. This cowl, in fact, it's another Jennifer Steinglass. I'm in a bit of a colour work mood. This happens every year. There'll be something that I get into the mood for, and then I'll do it until I'm thoroughly sick of it and never want to do it again. It's the Forest Fern Cow, and I had been going to knit it. It's been changed to the schedule. Oh, that's not got anything in it. I've been going to knit it in this undyed with gold stellina that I'm quite sure you can't see. Might be just a tiny little bit there. I've been going to knit it in that and this, but the more I looked at this, the more I didn't want to put it into the cowl. It just didn't quite fit. Anyway, another spoiler alert. Sunday I went through all my stash and I fished out this. Now this was dyed for me by my friend Sarah, who is the Fibre Sanctuary. She doesn't sell her yarn yet. We're trying to persuade her. She just dyes for herself and gifts for her friends. She made this for me 2022, I think, when I was doing the Knitting for Ukraine make along. She sent me a project bag, which I use all the time. This yarn, which was a sock set, there was a red mini with it. The red mini has gone into, during the course of my sorting out, I sorted out bags of minis for a blanket that I want to start in January. So it's gone into there. But this, I've been saving and saving and saving. I love it. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see, but it is a beautiful sagey green. and it has red and I think they're black speckles. And red, black and green just screams Christmas at me. They are my ultimate Christmas colours. So I'm going to use this instead. The contrast won't be as great, but I actually think I like that better. This is going to be the background. This will be the trees. And I haven't wanted to use this. I've been saving it. You know how you have a skein and it's really special and you kind of save it for best? I didn't want to make socks with it because socks wear out. I didn't want to make a hat with it because I wouldn't wear it often enough. But a cowl I will probably wear all of December, probably all of January. I could even wear it in November, so I can get 3 months worth of cowl out of this yarn each year. So that's why I've decided I'm gonna break it out of the museum and use it because it is beautiful. The speckles are just, I mean, look at that. Speckling gulls, people. That's what this is, speckling gulls. So I'm going to wind that up later. Or maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should wait till nearer the end of the week. We'll see. I'll do it before this time next week anyway. So I think that's all the knitting I have to tell you. Now I will give you an update on myself and Poppy. We both had hospital appointments last week on the same day. Mine was to see my endocrinologist about my thyroid, and long story short, I normally go to the main hospital in Taunton for that, but I had a letter telling me to make an appointment, made the appointment on over the phone, and they sent me somewhere else, Wellington, which I thought was closer than Taunton. Turns out it's not. I didn't actually know where it was. I had a general idea. So I set off in the general direction of Wellington. And again, long story short, got horribly lost. Horribly lost. Down country lanes where it's my nightmare. Where the hedges brush either side of the car. And I have a tiny car. Tiny, tiny. 20-year-old Renault Clio. It's a roller skate. And it barely fit. It was horrifying. Finally managed to find Wellington. Couldn't find the hospital. Eventually stopped and went into a doctor's surgery and got directions to the hospital. Found the hospital. To find there was no parking on site. You had to park in the public car park. It's a tiny little cottage hospital. Went to the car park, had no change for the machine. Someone had scratched the pay with your phone thing off the board, and according to Dave you can pay with an app, but I didn't have any mobile data, hence the fact I got lost, because I don't have a sat nav. Dave asked me why I didn't use my sat-nav, and I said, I haven't got one. And he said, yes, you have. You used to use it all the time for finding your students when you had new students. I said, yes, that was attached to the car. The car went back to the lease company in January 2020. I have the most basic phone contract, so I've got no mobile data because I don't really go outside the house that much. Certainly not to need data, so I couldn't use like Google Maps or anything like that. Couldn't download an app and pay by phone. So by now I'm 40 minutes late for my appointment. So I rang them and I said, look, I'm really, really sorry. I am here, but explained everything. And the receptionist said, there's a tiny staff car park, and it is tiny. It's about the size of my living room. Just come and park in that if there's a space. Give me your registration number. You won't be here long. We won't say anything about it. Okay. drove over and into the staff car park, no space. So no appointment. So I had to ring her back again, say I'm really, really sorry. Thank you so much, but. So now I'm waiting for an angry letter telling me off for not attending my appointment. I was out for 3 hours. I was driving for 3 hours because I got lost on the way home as well. And I haven't driven myself for longer than about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, since 2019 because of my illness, which if you don't know about, I have kidney failure caused by a autoimmune disease. I won't go into all the ins and outs. I was exhausted. I had a stress headache from being lost. I hate being lost and I hate being late. And I was both. And then I couldn't actually go in, so I didn't make my appointment and I'd let somebody down, and that gives me stress as well. So that's where the stress headache that Nancy cured came from. It was overcast but quite humid. The sun kept coming out. The car was 1,000,000 degrees. I'd worn a black dress because it wasn't sunny. And I was absolutely like desiccated. I was so dehydrated, which because of my kidney failure I'm not supposed to get. So all in all, I made myself quite poorly. I'm still not recovered, hence the fact I have to keep drinking. I am still dehydrated. I can't seem to rehydrate myself, and it's been a week. So yeah. Came home. Poppy had a vet's appointment. Again, that's a really long story. Poppy is kind of she's my co-host, or she was until beginning of this year. Then she fell ill with nobody knows. They said it was pancreatitis. Now they don't think it was. Now they think it might just be some genetic thing, but they don't really know. So 4 weeks ago, Poppy had injections of steroids, antibiotics and anti-inflammatories. And they last for 3 weeks. And they did. For 3 weeks, she was so much better. And then the 4th week, nosedive. So she had the appointment to go back. And I thought she would have put on weight because for the first 3 weeks, she did nothing but eat. Honestly, she's a bottomless pit. But in actual fact, she'd lost more weight, which I was horrified about. But the vet was actually, well, I'd expected her to lose more than that. She'd only lost 100 grams. So he was quite happy. He gave her 2 different steroids and an antibiotic this time. And he said, we'll see how it goes. If it makes her feel better, bring her back in 3 weeks. Then we won't have the week without it, really. If it doesn't make her better, then we need to have a conversation. Anyway, by the time she was home from the vets, she marched out of her pet carrier and demanded food. So I think we can safely say that it has in fact worked. If anything, she's better this time than she was the first time she had it, which was what he'd hoped would happen. She's been very, very weak, very wobbly on her back legs. She's still a little bit wobbly on her back legs, but she's been up and down the stairs. She hasn't done that for months. Don't judge, okay? The dining table has become a cat bed. It happened years ago. It's covered with towels and cloths and, what do you call them? Like bean bags. I went down the morning after, so Thursday morning, I went down and I looked in her bed. She wasn't there. I looked in all the other sleeping places. She wasn't there. I looked under a cupboard that she would sometimes hide under when she was feeling really poorly. She wasn't there. I was starting to panic. I was calling her. I thought, oh, please don't let her have gone behind the sofa, because I can't move the sofa. Not today. And went to pick up my phone to ring Dave and say, I've looked everywhere I think of. I can't find her. Can you think of anywhere else? And she was on the table, sitting there like this, looking at me as if to say, are you blind? What are you shouting for? I'm here. And I hadn't seen her because, I don't know, my brain just didn't connect the fact that she might be on the table. She's not been on the table for 6 months. So I think it's safe to say she was feeling a lot stronger. She has, once again, become a bottomless pit that we cannot fill. It's got to the point where you don't dare make eye contact with her, because she just marches you into the kitchen and demands more food. So it's not a cure, because we don't know what's wrong. But the arrangement we made with the vet was that she would receive palliative care. So we just want to make her feel better, and it's doing that. So we're going to see him again in 3 weeks. He will probably repeat the injections, and we'll go another 3 weeks and see how it goes. I'll see if I've got some photos I can put in. If there are no photos here, I couldn't find any for you. I'm sure I've got one of her on the table. She's washing herself more, which she wasn't doing before. You may have seen the little video I put up, the little short of her having a bath. She's just, in general, she's more healthy. That's the wrong thing to say. She's not healthy. She's feeling better, because the underlying condition is still there. We don't know what it is, so we can't fix it. She's a very vocal cat. If you've been around when she used to be on the podcast, you will have heard her chirruping, and she talks to people. And she's doing that again, which she doesn't when she's poorly. So she's obviously feeling better. She even went outside on the one day that it was sunny. She took herself off outside, just outside the back door. But when she saw me, she ran in. I think she thought she wasn't allowed out. So that's an improvement as well. So if there are no photos, as I say, I couldn't find any, but I will try and put a couple in, because I know people like to see her. The other thing that I have done that caused me not to do any knitting was I decided to sort through all my yarn and make space. It's not the first time I've done this, but it is the second time this phenomenon has occurred. I've sorted out a whole crate of yarn that I am destashing. However, what I'm keeping wouldn't fit back into the crates that it came out of. How does that happen? That's the second time that's happened to me, because I did this a few months ago as well, but last time it was my acrylic stash. This time I've gone through all the wool and hand dyed. How? Why? I don't understand. So, there was another saga involving me trying to set up a Destash page on Instagram, and I couldn't do it. So I put a Destash page on Facebook. Now, I know not everybody's on Facebook, but I'm going to put a link to it down below. I will combine postage if anybody's interested in stuff. I think it's up to, well, in the UK anyway, it's up to 2 kilos will be the same price. If you're overseas and you want anything, it gets more expensive. But yeah, that's where it all is. So, I think that's everything I had to tell you. I'm going to go because I really need a drink. If you'd like the weather forecast, nobody ever wants a weather forecast, but for some reason, British podcasters in particular feel it unnecessary. No, that's the wrong way. Feel it necessary to tell you what the weather's like, even though that is unnecessary. It's wet, it's cold, it's miserable. It's about 15 degrees, windy, and I don't know if you'd call it driving rain. It's certainly heavy drizzle and it's going sideways. For those of you outside the UK who use Fahrenheit, I think that's about 53, 55-ish. Bearing in mind this is the middle of our summer. Oh, cat. Not our cat. And I do feel very sorry for my friends over in the US who, well, they've all got hideous heat. It's like 120 degrees over there. And poor Belinda is also waiting, or it may have passed by now, I haven't checked, for Hurricane Beryl. So really I shouldn't be moaning that it's just a bit chilly and wet here, should I? Okay, that's everything I have to tell you, I'm sure it is. I'm going to go. I will see you next week. I will try and have some more actual knitting that I've done to show you next week. And until then, take care, guys. Bye.